So, as you guys know, today more than ever, researchers are under increased pressure to provide value for the work that we do. So, Salim and I are here today to give a call to action to clients and to research partners to make sure that what we do is both impactful and effective.
Sorry, I missed such a wonderful cue. So what I wanted to say was that what we want to share with you is, when we say a revolution here, is just how can suppliers and clients really work closely together to create a true partnership. That's all that we wanted to talk to you about. So when we talk about, let's start off with talking about the challenge. From an organization, from a client-side perspective, as we know, one of the biggest challenges for any insights department or for the insight function is that it is often seen as a cost center, right? And so how do we take that from a cost center to really a profit center? And when we talk about profit center here, it doesn't mean that, obviously, that we're going to start generating revenue as an insights department, but truly being integrated with the business to drive business growth, so that it is not just seen as expenses and cost, but truly making an impact on the business. So as we were thinking about that, we thought about three key principles that can really get us from that cost center view to a profit center view.
Be free, come together right now over me.
So the first principle that we thought about was research needs to really connect to business metrics. And it feels like this becomes even more important to take research further up in the organization, because it really comes down to a matter of credibility, right? I mean, people may be skeptical about insights data, about consumer data, but the business data, the hard business data, everyone has to accept it. That is the truth. So the more we can connect insights data to true business data, hard business data, the greater is the credibility and the more actionable it becomes. In other words, you're just getting a buy-in for the survey data or for the research data by linking it up to business metrics. And it doesn't always have to be, I mean, we talk about business metrics as sales or market share. It doesn't always have to be that. You know, you may be able to get that, you may not be able to get that, but it could be churn data or it could be some operational data. But when we link it up, that's when it becomes that much more impactful in the organization to get the buy-in and to really be able to socialize it.
Absolutely. And as partners, we sometimes have access to data sources that our clients don't have, whether it's media data or shopping behaviors or other industry knowledge. So we need to be weaving that data into our presentations and our analysis to help make our clients' lives easier. And then finally, we have to be creative. It doesn't have to be that a connection to business metrics is always an extensive analytics process. Instead, we can be creative and proactive partners by suggesting ways to align related data sets, or even just to do some simple correlation analysis to prove out some of those relationships.
Absolutely. All right.
We can work it out. We can work it out.
So on to our next principle here, and this is all about simplicity in storytelling. And when we say simplicity, obviously simple doesn't mean simplistic here, right? So what we mean here is the ability to tell the story, and it could be based on the most complex model, but for it to really go up in the organization, for it to go to the C-suite level, we know it has to be told in a simple, intuitive manner. And as we know, that is not always easy. It takes effort to get there, right? You know, as someone said, you know, if I had the time, I would have written a shorter letter, right? So there is a lot of effort that goes into it, but it is well worth it, because only then the data goes up it gets the buy-in, and becomes actionable.
Absolutely. And as research partners, we're used to delivering the stack on the left. Sometimes it's really long, sometimes it's wordy, but we need to understand that a CMO audience, for example, is going to expect a much more concise story. And if we want our analysis and our insights to go all the way to the CEO, they may only have time for a single page.
Right.
Now, it's our clients who do a lot of the heavy lifting, getting from right to left here, but Salim, what could we do as partners to help you make that move?
Right, and it comes down to, again, we're talking in threes here, so it comes down to three things here. One is the knowledge, right? So, and this is, again, everything that what we're discussing here, this is all a partnership. So when we're talking about knowledge, it's the business knowledge, which oftentimes will reside on, say, on the client side. But there has to be that sharing of the business knowledge, because the person who's writing the report really needs to know all the background information. Secondly, it really comes down to the skill of synthesis. And I think as people who are in the marketing research world, in the insights world, we love our data. And it's a curse of knowledge here that makes it harder, but it is so important to be able to truly synthesize and think from the perspective of the senior client, what is it that she or he really needs to know? And ultimately, it really comes down to the ability to tell a great story, because yes, you want it to be engaging as well. It's not just the message, but the way message is told. So those are some of the things that we see.
Here comes the sun, I say it's alright.
Right. Just building off on that idea of storytelling, this is the third principle, which is it's about holistic storytelling. And when we talk about holistic storytelling, what we mean here is, we hear this thing about big data and survey data and research data and survey and non-survey data and so forth. It's really bringing it all together, both survey and non-survey data. And doing that in a manner which is holistic, and which would mean that from cradle to grave. This is not just at the back end, throwing some data in and seeing how it sticks, but it is thinking about it from the get-go, from the cradle. When you design the research, the question that we all need to ask ourselves is, do we even need to ask those questions? What sources are currently available in the organization? What data sources are available, so that we are not recreating the wheel? And then when you are doing the analysis, when you're building the story, to bring all of that in.
Absolutely. So, Salim, let me show you an example of what I think brings all these three principles together. This is an example that Kantar put together where we found through survey data that Pantene in Spain had the highest brand equity. That meant that Pantene should have the largest share of the marketplace. But when we observed shopping behavior through Kantar World Panel, we found that there was actually room for Pantene to grow. So we identified two main levers to drive that growth. First, the brand needed to prevent diversion. That meant that consumers were going to the store with higher brand equity for Pantene, preferring that brand, but choosing a different brand at shelf. And second, we found that Pantene needed to build further equity by laddering the functional benefits for which the brand was already given credit to emotional benefits to help elevate the brand above competitors. Now, because we linked this data to observe shopping behaviors, we were able to put a real monetary value on those two levers. So what do you think?
I think it's a great example of putting all those three principles together, because you have the business metric here. That's what the senior level would really care about. You're using survey and non-survey data. So this is saying equity, which is a survey data, but then you have an actual sales data available, shopper data available as well, and you're linking it together to tell a story in one slide. So, yeah, that's
Was
great.
this something you would put on your CEO's desk?
Absolutely.
I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand.
So with that, all we wanted to say was that just bringing it all back together. It has to be a true partnership to get there. It's not just the client side, it is not just the supplier side, it is when they two get together in this true spirit of partnership that you can truly execute on those three principles. That's all we have.
Does anybody have any questions?
I do have one. So as I think about, you talked a lot about synthesis and needing to really collaborate and bring things down to that picture and that story you want to tell. Do you find that there's times that your partner or your internal partners or your clients really want all the data and you have to figure out a way to kind of reel them in and take it to that synthesis level?
I think it's not so much that they really, it's a matter of habit, right? Because I think we just love our data so much, we live and breathe it, that our tendency is to really say as much as we can. It's really that having the discipline, that practice to question ourselves and say, well, what do I really need to say here? And what are the key takeaways here, right? And just building the story off of that can really help. I think it's more a matter of discipline than anything else. But it's hard because these are tough habits. We are so much into the data that makes it hard.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you. Any other questions?
Hi. Obviously love the idea of bringing multiple data sources together, working with big data to tell a really succinct story. But one issue that comes with that can be analysis paralysis. So how do you combat that?
I think some of this comes down to what Celine mentioned earlier. Knowledge of the business can really help you identify the things that are important versus the things that are superfluous or redundant. Also, the skill of synthesis is something that we all need to practice and something that we need to train ourselves from the very start. That when we do analysis, we look for those meaningful nuggets rather than trying to tell a whole story through many, many different slides and laddering ourselves into more and more detail.
Yeah. I think analysis without synthesis leads to paralysis. So.
Thank you.
All righty.
Thank you.